So aside from running Stage 32, you're also a screenwriter, actor, voiceover actor.
Yeah.
How has networking helped you with, let's say, the screenwriting? How has that transitioned you?
It's made all the difference in the world. I'm a represented screenwriter because of social media. There were a lot of things that led to that. I placed second in the Creative World Awards out of, I think it was 5,000 scripts. Obviously, you can get exposure from that. The exposure that I got from that led to a couple of people that I knew through social media. There was somebody that was interested. They knew somebody that I knew on social media. That person went to bat for me with somebody else, and all of a sudden, it was, again, this web that I talked about earlier. All of a sudden, this was an expansion that led me to David Greenblatt. And David founded Endeavor back, I think, in the late 80s or whatever, sold it to William Morris, which is why William Morris Endeavor. He's one of the co-founders of it. He's been repping Shane Black since 1984. David wasn't somebody I was getting in front of without people vouching for me, people that I had cultivated relationships with on social media, who knew this person, who knew that person, who wanted to read the work now, who wanted to take a look at it, and who finally got it to a director who was repped by David. And the director said to David, "You need to read this." And a day later, the director was on a plane out here, and I was sitting in front of David, and 3 weeks later, I was repped. It doesn't happen without social media. It just doesn't. But it also doesn't happen had I not cultivated those relationships, had I not worked the social media side of things. And there's no bigger shining example than that, for me. I mean, it just doesn't happen without it.
But also the hours that you put into writing as well.
Well, absolutely. And again, it's that balance. It's that, like I said, it's like, to me, it's that 50-50 balance. Like, I spend 50% of my time on my craft, outside of Stage 32, of course. 50% of my time on my craft, but when I sit down, when I have the hours to work on my creative career, I spend 50% of the time on the stuff I'm working on. If that means I'm going to acting classes, I'm going to acting classes, but maybe during that time, I'm also networking. I spend the other 50% of the time trying to network, okay? It's so important. It's so vital. Everything good that has happened has come through, for me anyway, at least over the last few years. Even going back in a roundabout way to the film I produced, I was a producer on that went to Sundance, that was right at the beginning of Stage 32. And there was somebody that I met on the site that actually ended up playing a big part in that film going forward. It was somebody that ended up being an ally of mine in the production. So, and that led to something else later on. And then he introduced me to people, and on and on and on and on. So it's so vitally important that you put in the time. It's just, that's a perfect example of what I mean by it's who you know as well. The people that got me to David, let's say, to my screenwriting manager, they weren't necessarily big players. They were people that believed in what I was doing. They were people that knew other people. They were people that went to those other people and said, "Hey, the work is there. This just happened. He just finished second. You need to look at this." And they said, "Okay," because I was vouched for through these other people. And that doesn't happen without social media.
If there was a pie piece of the percentage of your day that you spend on social media, and I know this is getting really technical, but what, just a rough estimate?
It's tough for me to say that because I spend a lot of time on it as the CEO of Stage 32. So I spend a lot of time helping people on the site, answering questions, and even just contributing in the forums and stuff like that. But, again, I try to take half of my creative day. If I have like 6 hours which I very rarely do, but if I know if I have an hour, I'll spend a half hour writing or a half hour moving a project along. For example, like right now I'm working on producing a project, and I'm probably going to write the screenplay on it, where a book needs to be optioned, and we've been working with the attorneys and working with everything along those lines. If I have 2 hours to spend on that, I'm hoping I can get through the work part of that in an hour, to get that thing moving, and I'll spend the next hour networking, what I mean, and trying to get back to people and people who sent me network requests and looking at who these people are and if they're worth me accepting into the network, and on and on and on. So even if it's, well, it's actually a really good example. With this particular project, I went and found another producer through the site who had recently optioned the book. And even though I had been down through this process before, he was working in a lot of new media spaces, a lot of online. And I wanted to go to him and say, tell me your experiences. This is a person I met through the site. And we were able to communicate, get on the phone. You know, we talked online, but then we got on the phone, and you know, he gave me his experiences, which was very helpful, actually. So again, that communication doesn't happen if I'm not spending the time networking or going and looking for that.